At this time, I'm going to call Janine Agapi to do the national anthem for us. Thank you. Janine.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all our signs command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen. With gratitude to God for making today possible, the attending board of directors of the Sickle Cell Awareness Group of Ontario, Ms. Doreen Alexander, Ms. Moji Ogusanyer, and myself, welcomes you to the Queen's Park, Ontario Sickle Cell Reception 2019. Joining us today are a number of members of provincial parliament from the 4 political parties. But before I start, I'd like to recognize our sponsor today, MPP Andre Kajin. Can we help? Who I proudly introduce as my MPP, representing Barrie Innisville. Thank you. I would also like to welcome other attending members of provincial parliament from the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario, MPP Stephen Crawford, Christine Haggart, Michael Tobolo, Khalid Rashid, Julia Matteau, Rudy Coseto, Billy Peng, Lisa McLeod, Iris Babikin, and Vijay Tanigasalam. Members from the New Democratic Party of Ontario, MPP Jill Andrews, Jamie West, Francis Gillinas, Laura McNindo, Marit Stills, Percy Archfield, Chris Glover, Faisal Hassan, Joel Ardeen, Rima Vince McGowan. Member from the Ontario Liberal Party, MPP Michael Couture, and member from the Green Party of Ontario, MPP Mike Schreiner. The community leaders attending, including the Consul General of Grenada, I think he's not here yet, but he'll be joining us, Derek James. I would also like to welcome the community organization attending, the Sickle Cell Disease Association of Canada, represented by the chair of its board, Ms. Jenny Gums, the Thalassemia Foundation of Canada, represented by Ms. Ellen C. Havers, the Sickle Cell Association of Ontario, represented by Ms. Serena Thompson, Novartis Canada, represented by Mr. Paul Simpson, Ms. Fatima Fitch, and Ms. Diane Lynch. I would also like to recognize every family and individual attending today. And lastly but not the least, the presence of Dr. Madeline Veosek from McMaster Immunoglobulopathy Program. Dr. Madeline, thank you for being here. We still have Dr. Jacob Pendergrast coming from UHN. Will be attending as well, and Dr. Madikizer from Scarborough Hospital. We also have Shirley Moore, representing Camp Jumuki. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you. Thank you. Without much ado, I'd like to say that sickle cell disease is the most common monogenetic disease in the world, with over 10 million people affected, and 300,000 babies are born annually. Tragically, majority of these individuals will die in childhood. This is due to lack of basic care. And those who survive into adulthood will also face a life of chronic disability and premature death unless disease-modifying therapy can be provided. United Nations and World Health Organization thus declared sickle cell disease as a World Health priority, and even designated a day, June 19th, for sickle cell awareness. The World Health Organization urges countries affected by sickle cell disease to establish health programs and to promote access to medical services for people affected by sickle cell disease. It is noteworthy to acknowledge that through the advocacy work of the Sickle Cell Disease Association of Canada and its member organizations, including the Sickle Cell Awareness Group of Ontario, on December 17, 2017, Canada recognized June 19th as National Sickle Cell Day, and I am proud of this achievement. Now, coming back to our province here, Ontario, the Sickle Cell Awareness Group of Ontario recognizes sickle cell disease as an increasingly important medical issue in this province. Out of the estimated 6,000 Canadians affected by sickle cell disease, 3,345 live in Ontario. Over 65% of babies born with the disease in this country are born in this province. Further, over 150,000 Ontarians carry one form of the gene, and majority of them unaware, making sickle cell a public health priority in our province. While anyone could have sickle cell disease, it is predominant among people of African, Middle Eastern, Southern Europe, South Asia, and Caribbean migrants. And friends, these diverse groups are the faces of Canada and Ontario. Did you know that sickle cell disease has overtaken hemophilia and cystic fibrosis in the number of affected? And yet many of you here may have heard about cystic fibrosis and hemophilia. You may even know a friend or somebody who has it, but maybe not so much about sickle cell disease. And this, friends, is the reason why we are here today. To showcase and to introduce sickle cell disease to you, our policymakers. Over the years, the sickle cell community has witnessed different governments come and go. And while some of them have lent us sympathetic ears, and the last government did support somewhat, it is very sad that we still do not have a provincial strategy for sickle cell disease. And where you live in this province still determine the type of care you receive. Even though there are guidelines for sickle cell disease, our doctors did a good job in putting together these guidelines. But not many community hospitals follow these guidelines. And to end the all-way medicine, the government must enforce these guidelines. Otherwise, many individuals with sickle cell disease will continue to receive suboptimal care and suffer needless complications. It will also waste government resources, as people will stay longer in hospitals. It is just not necessary. So what do we want? Today, we want you to spend your lunchtime with us. We want you to know more about sickle cell. We want you to hear our stories, our journey with sickle cell. You will hear families living with sickle cell tell their story today. And we hope that by doing so, you will make policies that will support standard care and psychosocial programs for individuals and families affected by sickle cell disease, which will invariably improve their quality of life and allow them to contribute better to this society. We need this government to make provincial sickle cell program a priority, and we believe that you will support us, and we thank you for your time. Thank you. Without wasting much time, I'd like to call Miriam Gordon, who's a parent of a child with sickle cell disease, to come to the podium and share her story. Thank you. Miriam.
I just want to say, though she may look like a vibrant, healthy 8-year-old girl, her struggle is internal. Her physical trauma takes place inside, and every day she has to gather the mental strength and ability and capacity to battle through the most unimaginable pain you can think of. She's my little warrior, my role model, and I'm extremely proud of her resiliency. As a single mother of 2 and a parent of a child with a chronic illness, parenting for me consists sometimes of frustration, hopelessness, fear, sadness, stress, and pain that I just can't prevent the pain and suffering that she feels. In short, I live my life in a constant state of hyper-awareness and anxiety because I never know when she's going to go into crisis. Just a few weeks ago, we went to McDonald's. 1 minute she was eating her McChicken sandwich. The next minute she was having excruciating bone pain in her ribs. I had to call 911. We had to go to the hospital to sick kids because I thought she was having acute chest crisis, which is the most common deadly symptom for those who have sickle cell disease. So thankfully, she wasn't. We were able to go once all her vitals were deemed normal, but this is the life that we live. There is also the tremendous impact that the disease has on her self-esteem. She often complains about being bullied and teased at school because other kids do not understand what it is she's going through. Again, the lack of education and awareness. Among the many hats that I have to wear as her mother, I believe the most important role I have is her advocate. Advocating for my child goes beyond navigating and dealing with those in the medical field and the teachers and staff and friends. There is also the economic toll that is compounded with this. Parents of sickle cell patients miss a lot of time away from their work and are often unable to accept better employment opportunities because much of our time is dedicated to taking care of our children in the hospital. We have to be there to support them sometimes for days or weeks, depending on the length of the crisis they've had. Many are in for blood transfusions, such as my daughter. She's already had her spleen taken out at the age of 4 because of reoccurring buildup in her spleen. I also have to worry about the everyday chance of her getting a sudden fatal stroke, because sickle cell patients have an increased risk of stroke given where an occlusion can happen anywhere in the body. So I joined Sickle to help me cope with sharing my story with other parents and others, not just parents, but other patients who have the disease. I go to the support meetings whenever I can, and I've come to understand the many challenges and obstacles that sickle cell patients face within Ontario's healthcare system. Suffering pain of extreme intensity is tremendously distressful. The disease itself is difficult enough without having to deal with medical staff who are unfamiliar or uneducated about sickle cell and its symptomology. Because their disease does not necessarily show up on their face, sickle cell patients are often casted into a category of an addict or a hypochondriac. It's, as Langley mentioned before, it's often historically seen as the black disease. Many adult sickle cell patients say they would rather not go to an emergency room and seek attention for fear of being discriminated against. In addition, adult sickle cell patients are often sent home prematurely before their crisis has been properly treated. They speak of the challenge of trying to articulate their pain and suffering to medical staff who are often dismissive and designate their symptoms as not a priority. In an effort to curb the opioid crisis, sickle cell patients are being marginalized, and this must stop. Racial bias within the healthcare system is severely affecting the psychological and physical well-being of adolescent and adult sickle cell patients. There's a serious contrast when it compared to the care that my daughter receives at Sick Kids and in other hospitals across Canada. And I often ask myself, why? Nothing separates my daughter from an adult sickle cell patient except age. Why does empathy and compassion suddenly go away because the person is now 18 years of age or over? As a parent, I am petrified that my daughter will not receive the same care as she gets when she's at Sick Kids and she transitions out. I am extremely grateful to the wonderful doctors and the first-class care that the doctors and the nurses provide there. And I ask, why can there not be a universal standard of care similar to Sick Kids? Who decides what's pressing and what's important? We must challenge and help eradicate these racial biases and stereotypes now. As a parent, I am asking for a better, thorough education for the next generation of doctors and nurses, one that communicates a sense of urgency and understanding needed to treat sickle cell patients like my daughter, Nevaeh. I know I speak for many other parents as well who would like to see greater funding for respite care, especially for those who have more than one child with the disease and are forced to spend immense amounts of time in the hospital with their children. Many would like some aid in education, tutoring in sickle cell children because they are often suffering academically because of the missed classroom time. This in turn affects their future success in post-secondary education and thus employment and career prospects. I will always be a mother of a sickle cell daughter, as there is no cure, but I'm hoping we can work towards making these changes now so my daughter can continue to have the same level of care that when she transitions to other hospitals when the time comes. Further research on sickle cell disease lags behind when compared to others. I just want to say thank you to SCAGO and all the important work that you do to bring sickle cell awareness to the people who are responsible for making these policy decisions, and also to the forefront in general of Canadians. Again, I want to thank the members of the Legislative Assembly for allowing our concerns and that of my daughter, so together we can make a difference.
Next, I would like to call Mira Hatter, to share her story. Mira?
My name is Mira. I'm 11 years old and I live in Hamilton. I also have sickle cell. I really enjoy going to school. However, because of being sick, I've had to miss many school days and after-school activities. I've had to have many blood transfusions and eventually have my spleen removed when I was only 4 years old. Every day, I have to take a few medications to keep me healthy. Sometimes it is more difficult for me to do the same things a child my age can do. Because of anemia, I get tired easily and I must pace myself. Having a simple cold can turn into pneumonia or a chest crisis, which is very painful and scary. Despite the pain, I enjoy doing gymnastics and playing soccer. I worry about my future, and we need your help to make sure kids like me have the support and care we need to lead healthy, productive lives, just like everyone else. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call Hadi Niyi. Hadi, who will share his story as an adult living with sickle cell disease.
Thank you everyone for coming here today. I thank you all for supporting this cause. My name is Adeni Omishore, and I've had sickle cell anemia for all my life. It's had a tremendous negative effect on my life. I used to be able to hang out with my friends whenever I want, but now because of sickle cell and the pain I've had, I can't even do simple things like go to the movies, hang out with them. I used to be able to play soccer and football and do any kinds of activities, but because of sickle cell anemia, I have had vascular necrosis on my left hip, and that made me not be able to, be as active in running anymore. I've had to had a hip replacement at 17 years old, and I don't know anyone else who's had a hip replacement at 17. It's been such a negative effect. I try not to think about it, but in all honesty, there's times where I do get depressed and do think, why has this happened to me? Why is it me? I just want to be normal. Why does it have to happen to me? It's hard to, I try not to think about it, but it's thoughts that come through my mind. I've had so many sickle cell crises that I've missed so much school. I've had to repeat school for 2 more years because I've just been so sick, and I get so stressed out that, oh, I'm missing school, and the work that I'm missing is piling up, and because of that it stresses me out even more, and I get even more sick, and that leads to an endless cycle where it's hard for me to do things that I want to do. I want to be a nurse, but because of sickle cell anemia, I've been so sick that I've been missing countless school days, and it seems like it's going to be impossible for me to graduate, and it's an issue that I try not to think about, but it's a reality that I have to face. I'm turning 21 next year, and this is my last year of high school, and if I don't graduate now, then I don't know what I'm going to do. It's been such a strain on my familial relationship that I don't have the best relationship with my older brother, which when we were kids, we were like the best friends. But now, because of this thing, it's like he's so far away, and it's like there's no way that I can reach him. It's been such a strain on my friendships. I barely have any friends I do have, I'm lucky to have because they understand and can stay by my side and stand by my side. But there are some people who don't have friends like that, some people who can't understand, who don't want to understand. And it can be a very painful and disheartening thing, especially for people like at a young age. When this was happening to me at a young age, I was scared, terrified, frightened, bullied, and I felt alone. But because of Chicago, I noticed that there were other people like me, that I'm not alone, and that some days, hopefully, there can be a way to beat this tragic, awful, disheartening disease that can take so many great things away from you that you want to do, things that you hope you can do, but then someday, because of sickle cell, because of the pain, it's just stops being out of reach because you feel like there's no way to reach it. The pain is almost immeasurable. I've been in the hospital more than 10 times this year, and my mother has missed so much work because of it. In all of my life, I think she's missed about two years of work total because of how much I've been in the hospital. And it's like I can't do anything to help her because I can't stop this myself. Even when you take all your medications, even when you do what the doctors tell you to do, sometimes it does work, sometimes it doesn't work, and it's a tough thing, and it's hard to handle, and it's can be really painful and horrible. But there are other people who have the same thing, who can be there for you, and I just hope that someday soon, like, my kids will have to deal with this horrible disease, because if it's 100% chance that my kids would have this, then I'd rather not have children at all, because I don't want them to go through the hell that I've been through. Thank you for listening to me.
Miss Periana Dixon, thank you.
My name is Periana Dickinson, and I am an adult patient with sickle cell disease. I am also a volunteer with Sickle, I coordinate a program at Sick Kids with Sickle. It's called Meet the Parents. We meet families of all races with sickle cell disease. And when we tell them who we are and what we do, suddenly the great hope that lights up their faces, just to know that there is such an organization put in place, gives them great relief. Sickle brings these families hope in many ways with the services and accommodations that we provide. Today, Sickle is much needed in Ontario to continue to console these families by letting them know that Canada is a country that stands out in many ways and the future will be brighter. I ask you as policymakers to provide the necessary support to ensure Sickle continues to provide psychosocial support to Ontario families with children, youth, and adults with sickle cell disease. Thank you.
At this point, I'd like to call the sponsoring MPP, Andre Kajun, Barry Hennisville, to bring remarks. Thank you.
So happy to have you here. I just remember the first day Landry walked into my office and we had scheduled, we had a meeting on sickle cell, and it's incredible how much passion we have behind this woman who stands here today. So I just want a round of applause for all of you. It's individuals like yourself, Larnie, that inspire others to lead, inspire others to bring awareness to such important causes. And I'm just proud to draw attention and sponsor this event. And on behalf of the Sickle Cell Group of Ontario, I want to thank everyone for coming here today. Minister Elliott, our Minister of Health, does send her regrets. She's actually in cabinet right now, but she didn't want to be here, so she sends her hello and her regrets I'm sending that on her behalf. So the thing that most people are not aware of, and Lorna, you had educated me about it very quickly, and that is this Sickle Cell Awareness Group is Canada's largest patient group and advocacy organization providing social services to families with children, adolescents, adults with sickle cell disease. That's incredibly powerful to be that largest organization. And since 2005, the Sickle Cell Awareness Group of Ontario has been creating and providing evidence-based supports and services to enhance the health and quality of life of families with sickle cell disease. And if you haven't met those individuals yet, you're just coming in today, they're all around this room. Maya, that was incredibly brave of you to stand up and share your story. You are a fighter, and it's just amazing to be amongst people like yourself today. And while we are raising that awareness of anyone can be diagnosed with sickle cell disease or the sickle cell trait, it's very important to know the prevalence of sickle cell in people of African and South Asian communities, and the fact that there still needs to be more work to be done to raise awareness about this condition, and making sure that our government, when we talk about ending hallway healthcare, there's a lot of things that are associated with that. It's a lot of the investments that we are making in healthcare. It's a lot of investments we're making in educating our public and raising awareness on things like this, and pointing to the studies out there that exist. Recent studies, for example, show that there are more than 3,355 sickle cell disease patients here in Ontario, as was mentioned earlier. And that's why we're all here today. And I'm thrilled that we are able to be in this room today, sharing our stories, raising awareness. And I know that today is a day for this particular topic, but I think it's something we can talk about every day, because it's something that you, as many families in this room, you have to live with every day. So it's not just one day to come here, but it's making sure that we have a government that's working hard. We're working hard to bring a lot of opportunities here to Ontario. I myself came to Ontario at the age of 4. It was a land of hope and opportunity, a place that will provide you with a lot of open doors if you work hard and you play by the rules, and our government's really committed to that. We're really committed to making sure that life is more affordable here in Ontario, and a lot of that starts with healthcare. One of our large commitments when we ran for office was we wanted to end hallway healthcare, and like I said earlier, that means that we have to address the the reasons as to why people are coming in, focus on community involvement, focus on community prevention. Because if we can focus on community involvement and community prevention, we can avoid having many of those hospital beds full. So thank you very much for everyone that's here today.
At this time, we'll call the member of the National Democratic Party of Ontario, MPP Jill Henders.
Yes, my name is Jill Andrew, and I'm the MPP for Toronto St. Paul's. I'm also the culture critic, and it's with great honor that I stand here today with Sickle Cell Awareness Group of Ontario. In my riding, I met with one of our community members, Ulyss Gader, the chair of the Sickle Cell Awareness Group of Ontario, and his friend Alvin Merchant. Both Ulyss and Alvin live with sickle cell anemia. Sickle cell disease was the first genetically recognized disease, and it is a severe, life-threatening illness that impacts red blood cells. Although many racialized people are impacted, including people of Arabian, Greek, and Italian descent, it disproportionately impacts Black and South Asian communities. That aside, it is important to acknowledge that sickle cell can impact a person of any race. This disease impacts the quality of one's life, it has destroyed families, and it is often fatal. As Ulyss and Alvin emphasized, from childhood, they've had to live one after painful day at a time, witnessing too many funerals of sicklers, undergoing too many hospitalizations, and frankly, hospital patient horror stories and surgeries, never knowing when a visit to the ER might be their last. Doctors on average receive only 8 hours of sickle cell training during 7 years of medical school. It is one of the most misunderstood, misdiagnosed, mistreated, under-researched, and underfunded diseases. Because sicklers may sometimes walk into the ER looking good on the outside, healthcare providers cannot see the war that's being waged on their bodies on the inside. By the time a doctor or nurse decides to believe a patient's in crisis and is in debilitating pain, it can be too late. We must support the call of the Sickle Cell Awareness Group of Ontario. We must formally recognize June 19th as Sickle Cell Day across Ontario. We need a universal hospital protocol so that any sickler can go to a hospital knowing they will get the same standard of care no matter where they go. We need to increase education awareness among our schools and our workplaces where sickler absences are often stigmatized and seen as a sign of laziness instead of illness. And I have to say, I know this point blank as someone who lives with alpha thalassemia trait and various chronic health issues, GI specific. We must recognize sickle cell as a disability because 90% of ODSP applicants with sickle cell are denied the first time. It is a great shame. I am honored, and I tell you honored, to stand with Ulyss, with Alvin, and with the Sickle Cell Awareness Group of Ontario. And I say the full name as opposed to the acronym because we need to keep sickle cell on the agenda. As you all know, the government has time allocated Bill 74. That means there's no more conversation, debate has been closed, consultation is not happening. I am here to let you know, as your MPP for Toronto St. Paul's and your culture critic, along with your health critic, France Gilanis, who met with the organization today, that we are determined to stand shoulder to shoulder with you to get these asks done. Because sickle cell, there's no more time to wait. There is no more time to wait. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. I'm going downstairs with students. Have a good afternoon. Thank you very much.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Ontario Legislature. I'd like to thank everyone for being here. I know that we've got some very important people in the room, but I'd like to especially thank the young children that are here and for their bravery and for just being here to share their story. So thank you so much. My father's from Grenada. My family's from Carriacou. And I know that this is a trait that is very prevalent within our community. I've grown up with many family members who have suffered from different episodes and lifelong challenges because of it. And I know that what it does, it really takes away from your quality of life in many different ways. One of my cousins, I only have a couple cousins in Jenny, I didn't see there. A couple cousins in Toronto, but I know that one of my cousin has it's changed her life completely when it comes to employment, when it comes to raising children, when it comes just to quality of life, and it's quite devastating. I also grew up with a young man in Flemington Park who passed away in his 30s because of it, and so it's it can be very devastating if it's not treated properly or the severity of the challenges. While we were in government I was in government for 6 years in different ministries, and this has been an issue that I've always advocated for. In fact, one of the reasons the advocacy days are here today is because of the encouragement to come in and to explain to MPPs and policymakers about this health challenge for many people. It's a disease that not many people know about. You take, for example, I remember you sent me an email, Landry, back in 2007 that talked about the funding for cystic fibrosis. I think there's 4,000 patients across the country. The funding is about $17 million for advocacy. And in the United States, the Sickle Cell United States organization is tens of millions of dollars in funding. When it comes to Ontario and Canada, that funding is limited, and there's no question in my mind there is racism attached, systemic racism attached to the healthcare system in this country. We tried to bring in through the Anti-Racism Directorate race-based statistics for healthcare. It's something that we believe was necessary, and that would actually end up, once you collect that type of data, because a lot of the healthcare system is based on big data. We believe that once you start to collect that data, it becomes undeniable that you have to actually make those massive changes. The same thing while I was a school board trustee, when we brought in race-based data, we started to see changes in the Learning Opportunity Index where the funding went because of the data. It was undeniable at that point. So we need to continue to collect the right type of data in the healthcare system. I encourage the current government to collect that information. The Anti-Racism Directorate for the last year has fallen on deaf ears. There's been no action. It is important that the 4 sectors that were identified, including healthcare, are acted upon, and that we start to collect that data in order to make better decision making in health. I want to say that you have my full support. The association has my full support, whatever I can do. There's not many Liberals in the building anymore, but we're still here, and I'm here to stand up for our community, for anyone who suffers from this terrible disease. And I just want to say thank you for being here. I also want to recognize Natalie DesRosiers, who's joined us, who's one of the other 7 Liberals in the Ontario Legislature. Thank you so much for being here.
The member from the Green Party of Ontario, MPP Mike Schreiner. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today. And I especially would like to thank the young people for being here and for everyone sharing your stories. It is so important for us to hear those stories. And I know MPP Coteau had mentioned that there aren't that many Liberals in the building. Well, there's even fewer Greens in the building. But the one thing I can tell you is that this is an important issue for us. So 100% of the Green Caucus is here with you today. And I just want to say how much I deeply appreciate the work of the Sickle Cell Awareness Group of Ontario for your advocacy, for supporting families and individuals dealing with sickle cell disease, and how important it is the work that you do to provide that support, and how I, as an MPP and as a leader of the Green Party, we are here to work with you. And I want to be clear to everyone that anyone of any background can have sickle cell disease. But we know, as others have stated, that it predominantly affects communities of African and South Asian descent. And I think we have to heed the words that MPP Pro talked about in terms of the role of race in the lack of funding, the lack of awareness, and the lack of support for sickle cell disease. And I think it's incumbent upon MPPs from all parties to fight against that and to stand up for equal and equitable access to health care for everyone in this province, regardless of your background, your race, your ethnicity. And so I stand with you to support Sickle Cell Awareness Day, and more importantly, stand with you to demand and insist that our healthcare system provide equitable access to support and treatment to everyone in every community when it comes to sickle cell disease. And that we stand with you in calling for more investments in research and treatment, because everyone in our society should be cared for in an equitable and compassionate way. And that's exactly where the Green Party stands, and we will work with you to deliver that when it comes to sickle cell disease. So thank you so much for the amazing work that you do, and thanks for being here today.
At this time, I'd like to introduce Councillor Jim Karagiani. He'll be presenting certificates to her brave heroes, Hadi, Myra, and Miriam. Thank you.
Good afternoon. For those of you that think that sickle cell only attacks those communities, to say think again. When I was growing up, it was a prevalent word in my community, thalassemia. And a lot of people said, what is that? I was not even aware myself until a friend of mine and his children were hit with thalassemia. It is not an easy disease. And it's not one particular ethnicity, and it's not one particular race. This disease knows absolutely no race, no color, no boundaries. So as we work together to make sure that we combat and we overcome this disease, I'm here today to recognize 3 individuals. Marianne Gordon. And it's the same word for all 3 of them. We're pleased to congratulate you for your contributions toward raising awareness about sickle cell disease within our Toronto community. Sickle cell disease is a debilitating, or whatever the word is, disorder that affects the lives of many in our city and across the nation. Education on sickle cell disease is vital and much needed, and your efforts in raising awareness about the disease are gratefully appreciated. Through your dedication and leadership, you have made a positive difference in the lives of many. On behalf of City Council, we thank you for doing this. The next person is Myra Assad. Where's Mama? Mama, go.
I have 3 children.
And the final recipient is Adeniji Omishore.
In closing, I'd like to thank every member of Provincial Parliament, the dignitaries, community organizations, and the industry partner that joined us at today's reception. I'd like to thank Mr. Jim Karagiani for presenting the certificates, MPP Kajin for sponsoring this room. We really thank you. It is my hope that everyone here today, especially the policymakers, have learned 1 or 2 things about sickle cell disease. People that attended today's reception are from across the province, from Ajax, Barrie, Pickering, Whitby, Brampton, Ottawa, Toronto, Kitchener, Oakville, Mississauga, Vaughan, Newmarket, Scarborough, Hamilton, Niagara Falls. And it is important to note that these are your constituents, and these people are affected by sickle cell disease and they need your help. As such, the Sickle Cell Awareness Group of Ontario needs the policymakers to work with us to support your constituents. Before closing, I would like to also thank again Jani Ragapi for doing the national anthem. Thank you so much. And every volunteer that came. Without volunteers, we couldn't do what we've done. I'd like to thank the speakers for telling their stories. Thank you so much. And I will encourage you to continue to mix and mingle. This is the purpose of the reception. We're here till 1:30, so please feel free to meet new people and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you next year. Thank you. If I may have everybody come to the front for a group picture, that would be great, a group picture. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us here.